All right, so I've got Rush with me here, joining me for the podcast. Thank you so much for taking the time. It's hard to get players, man. You guys are way too busy.
Yeah, no problem. Right now, we got like a little bit of a break, not necessarily from playing CS, but from traveling, so that's good for us.
So I think we can start there. Actually, obviously, everybody responds differently to the schedule. I think that a lot of players who get involved with pro gaming, or at least let's say players who are thinking about pro gaming, they're probably not thinking about the lifestyle requirements because it's all very well and good being in your bedroom, but when you start traveling a lot, you have to adjust, and it's very different, and it's going to be frustrating at times. So how was the adjustment to you? Did you adjust really well, or was it difficult?
At first, it's always like super nice because you get to travel the world for free, and it's like kind of like a dream come true. But when you start getting to the higher levels, this is when I first started, so I didn't travel like all the time. It's maybe like a couple times a year I go to Europe, which is amazing. But nowadays, it's like much more common, and you can't really hold down a lot of like close relationships. I mean, you can, but it's like long distance basically at that point, whether it be with a friend or a girlfriend. So I think that's tough. Also, you don't see your family as much because typically when you move to a team, you also move like to wherever their team's located at. Like for me, it's Cloud9 lives in LA. I'm actually from Wisconsin, so I've been in LA for over a year now, and I have seen my family once since then. And I'm also going on vacation with them during the winter player break, so that's nice. But it's just like if you are young, it can be endearing to leave your family at a young age. You don't expect it, but I enjoy it personally. It sucks not to see my family, but I like living in LA. It's really nice here, so.
Yeah, I've actually just moved myself, so so yeah, I
Mhm.
could definitely feel you there coming from London. But that is an interesting thing actually, because I think again this is not talked about too much, but it surely must affect performance in a variety of different ways. It's some people do need that family time, or having more time for friends, and when you're stuck sort of playing, sort of grinding a video game, if you're hitting hard times, maybe when you're playing professionally, surely it's I mean, what I'm getting at is you're going to play your best Counter Strike when you're feeling very happy and when you're not feeling sort of depressed in any sense. So from the basis of managing your own sort of happiness, has there ever been any sort of problems there for you? Because it's got to translate to performance, right?
I think the only time I'm not happy is when we're not playing well. Like I've always been happy pretty much, like because like I said, this is pretty much a dream job for me. So I think that it's important, besides the game aspect, is to have a balance in life. Like right now, in general, like I have a decent balance, but I could say I could be getting out more. Like on my free time, sorry, I spend a lot of time playing other games, and I like playing games, but that can be unhealthy. So it's good to like get out, go to the gym, go on a hike, go out with friends, go out with your teammates. Like just getting to this, like if you're in a team house, which I'm not right now, I'm in my own apartment, but if you're in a team house, being in a team house all day around gamers all day, just gaming, it can become a little like unhealthy, whether you're playing well or not, and that can affect your performance. I think so. I think having a balance is whether you're a casual or a professional is very important. But in terms of like being away from home hasn't affected me at all. Like like I said, I enjoy the move. I enjoy living in LA. So I think that the only thing that can get to me the most is like performance wise. So like clearly I've probably been a little unhappy lately because we haven't been playing our best CS the last since Summit, really since Katowice around that time, which was like in March. And it's due to many factors. This roster instability, I'm going off on a tangent, but play roster instability and like just in general, like people aren't happy, so that can affect your performance.
Yeah, I really feel like it's there's so many sort of obstacles to maybe even playing your best CS in that sense. So it's interesting to hear your take on it from the perspective of, because I think that when you're looking from the standpoint of, let's say, a lot of the fans, they may just look at things from a work ethic standpoint when it comes to performance and so on. But obviously, as you're alluding to, it can be a lot more than that, and you can be in a spot where, as you mentioned, you might not strike the best balance, and you can't just spend 12 hours a day death matching. So how is the approach for you personally to help develop your own game, but also the amount of time you spend with your team, and how do you balance, how do you make sure that that's balanced and you're not overdoing it?
I mean, obviously, like most pros, like around, I'd say like if they've been playing for 4+ years, they're not necessarily at their peak, but there also is not much more they can learn if they're at the top 5, top 10, if they've been there, if they won tournaments. If they're at that level, there's very little you can do to improve your game besides keeping it honed, like making sure you're in the meta up to date, like watching your demos, watching your games, knowing what the other team has, how they're playing. But your individual skill, I feel like for me, like I can't like a little bit of DM, a little bit of retake, and maybe FPL, which I don't play that often anymore, honestly, because it's kind of like deteriorated a bit in NA. I mean, they're granted they're trying to fix it now, but for me, just like playing my best requires me to just be in a good mindset and just make sure I don't deteriorate. Because I think that I've always been improving and I'm still improving to this date. But I think what makes me not play the best is when like I'm in a bad mindset, like when we have no fifth, when we're playing poor CS, things like this will make me and I'm sure every player play worse. But I think that in general, like grinding out to hours, like 12-hour sessions, 10-hour sessions, it's not going to do much besides make me worse. I think if I play a lot of Counter Strike, I actually play worse than I do when I play like a normal amount of Counter Strike that I should be playing. I think the only time you should really grind the fuck out of CS is if you're a guy who's up and coming, who's joining like the amateur teams, like you're making a name for yourself. I grinded the fuck out of the game when I was back then. Like I was playing like I said, 10 hours a day, playing 150 pugs a month. You have to do that to get good, in my opinion. Like the way to get good is to simply play the game a lot. And like I said before, it goes back to having balance in your life. Like whatever you have, if it's school, work, like you have to balance all of it. But you're not gonna become the best you can be without playing a lot of CS.
Yeah, I think that's a it's definitely no way around that. I think I do like to talk about all the ways you can either supplement your training and ways that you can improve quickly. But as you say, there's definitely no shortcut, and it is interesting to see sort of what the obstacle, like the newer obstacles when you do reach your level of play, because as you were sort of alluding to, have this mentality aspect, the mindset, the sort of psychology of being a professional and dealing with pressure, and how do you reach consistency as opposed to how do you get 10% better. It's how can I be consistently 10% closer to my peak, and so I feel like consistency is one of those very personal questions. It's a bit different for everybody, the struggles that people have with it. So how has consistency been for you? Is it an issue, or how do you think about it?
I mean, from the outside looking in, it can definitely seem like an issue, but I feel like I only had maybe one or two like moments where I felt like I was actually like not at my peak form. I feel like I've always been like in a good form individually. I think for me especially, I really struggle on a team that's not like fundamentally sound, or not fundamentally sound. What's the word I want to go for? Like a team that's not like set in stone. Like things aren't, the roles are set. We have a set roster. Like things like this need to be set for me to play at my best. And if they're not set, like say we don't have an IGL, we're playing with stand-in, we're playing with someone that's not doing the role right. Something like these things will actually, I think, make me play tremendously worse because I'm really when things are set in stone, like a caller knows all our strats. So we have like a strat book. We've had our five for months. That's when I play my best. And you can go look at my stats. I don't really care about stats, but if you look at my stats, I play my best when we had stable rosters, like, and when I play my worst when we have unstable rosters. Like I look at Optic, and when we lost Stanislaw and we got like a new fifth for like 7 months, like kind of like we have now, I play bad. You look at the Cloud9 situation, I played really good consistently before we lost Tarek and Stu. Like, but ever since we lost them, I've been playing terrible. Some players they don't really get affected by it, like they can play their best. Like I think Tim Automatic's one of those guys. Like he will always play well because he's just a great player. But for me personally, I need structure. I need a set team, and like I played decent at this last event in Blast because Keo actually filled the role pretty well. I felt comfortable with him, so like I didn't feel comfortable with like the previous fifths we've had. So
It's a really good point, and actually, a lot of the stuff you're talking about there is definitely where I'm going to be hitting all those points. So firstly, before you joined Optic, as we begin to talk about like when you started to play like incredibly well, you're on Conquest, but then you moved over to Optic and things started to really click. And I think that Optic was a crazy success story. In a very short amount of time, Optic Gaming was winning titles, and a lot of the like every single player on the team was playing way above the expectation from sort of the name value that you guys all had at the time. Yeah. So what the success behind Optic?
oh,
What do you think
yeah.
that was all about?
Yeah. I think it came down to getting Tarek, honestly. Like, no offense to Daps. We cut him. He's a great guy and really close friends still. But I think that it's kind of like reminds me of the click that happened when me and Tarek joined on Cloud9, you feel something like an insta click. Things are meshing well from the start. Like it's not necessarily a honeymoon period because you're gonna struggle at the start, but you feel like everything's right. Like the roles are really good, and that's how it was in Optic. Like Tarek and me became these really aggressive entry fraggers that like fit the role perfectly. We had mixed role opping, we had NAF lurking, and being like a hybrid, and you have stand calling and being support as well. And all these roles are just like perfect. And at the same time, like when we had this run where we won like 2 tournaments and had a couple like top 2, top 4 placings at the end of the winter in 2016. We just like were all peaking as well as individuals. Like everyone was at the top of their game. Like I was in the best form of my life. I think I've had better forms actually in Cloud9, but back then it's like when I first started to hit my stride. And at the same time, all 4 of the other players were also hitting their strides, and we just were not scared of anyone. Like sometimes NA teams well, they have good players and they have good results online and even on land versus other NA teams. But when they go to Europe, they tend to like change the playstyle. But I think something about Peter or Stanislaw is when he called versus these European teams, he called fearless and he called very what's the word, like unpredictable. Like these teams probably would never expect us to do what we did, and I think that's why we played so well in those like 3 or 4 month span.
Yeah, it was a really interesting period because these days, we have a lot of North American teams that I think just due to the trickle down effect of having the benefit of having MIBR in the scene for so long, all those that core to learn from, and the Cloud9 core to learn from, and Team Liquid. There's all these good examples now of and there's a lot more in-game leaders. Everything's really caught up in North America. But back then, when you guys were successful, it was a bit unheard of to have a group of sort of I would say lesser known players at the time hitting that level and winning lands in that way. So and as you say, it was very unpredictable calling from Stan, but when I remember when I was casting the games and was watching Optic, I was thinking to myself, I was like, wow, this team is playing like really good, like Counter-Strike. Like they're playing like really solid defaults and just branching out of the defaults, like as you say, like unpredictable ways. This is like really high level stuff that I'm just not used to seeing in North America. And so that was when Stanislaw definitely hit everyone's radar, and everyone was very impressed with what he could do as a leader. So what was it like playing with him for the first time and sort of like integrating into how he wanted the game to be played, and also is his influence overblown, or was it as much as you think people talk about?
Well, Daps was the IGL for Optic from when even from the Conquest days when me and Stan, me, Stan, Nat, Shaz, and Daps. I think I got everyone. Yeah, we were all on Conquest together, and Daps was calling on that team. Then we got signed by Optic, and he called all the way up into the point where he got cut for Tarek, essentially. So Sam wasn't calling at all, but he would give suggestions. He would always give good suggestions, but we didn't really see his calling until um, it was with Tarek. And back then, initially, it was kind of like his calling wasn't the best, but I could tell he had a knack for it. It was very unique style. Like when I say like he's unpredictable, I mean that we were a very defaulty team, like you said, but he had the perfect mix of that and doing something completely fucking random, like four rush this spot, like or like go through the smoke like randomly, like and that would really like catch people off guard because we're defaulting for like 5 rounds, 3 rounds, like and then they expect that, and then we just do something completely out of the ordinary. But that's also a thing that once you know a team plays like that, you're not gonna catch them off guard because they're gonna be ready for it. So I think over time people got an understanding of how Stan calls. And that's why like maybe he didn't fall off at all, but maybe that's why he didn't last on Liquid. I don't know if Liquid was a fan of his calling or not. I can't say.
It seemed like there was a clash, definitely, of ideas on Liquid, but obviously, moving towards the end of the Optic storyline, it ended up being the case that Stan left, and Mixwell was obviously very sad. And I mean, I imagine all of you, but I think Mixwell was very vocal about how disappointed he was, considering of how good of a thing you guys had going. It felt like you hit such a stride, and you didn't really get to enjoy it and enjoy that success for maybe as long as some teams may enjoy it for.
Yeah, it's. I mean, this video of me like saying like it's really dumb they left like. I mean, the way he left was thinking about it now, it's still so stupid. Like, cause he didn't tell anyone. He never gave us a heads up. It was more so like we were getting on for practice. I'm sure you heard the story maybe, but like, me and Mixwell were driving back to the team house, and we had practice in like 30 minutes, and like Stan wasn't posting in the chat at all about anything. We're like, it wasn't. We didn't think anything of it, and then we got on for practice. And like 30 minutes after we waited for him to come on for practice, he messages us, or someone, maybe Hex, our owner, messaged us saying Stan left the team, and we're just like, okay. Like it was pretty out of nowhere. That's why I was maybe a little salty at the start, but I think it took me a very little time to forgive him because I'm not a person who holds grudges. Um, but you never know, like, what could have happened. You never know how many more tournaments we could have done well at. Like, I think the last tournament we played at the it was a major together, and we bombed out 1-3 right after like our E-League win, I think. But we did bad because Mixwell got stuck in Europe for a visa issue. We couldn't practice with them for like 2 weeks, so we all had low hours. We didn't get any practice in. I think that that's not a good gauge of the team we could have been. But in hindsight, like maybe it was a blessing in disguise. Maybe I had to sift through shit and like deal with all the roster issues only to get picked up by Cloud9. Maybe I wouldn't have. Maybe we would have done a lot like decent, and I wouldn't have left for Cloud9 if we had standstill. So I think that I would have never won the major if I never joined Cloud9, right? So like all these things, like everything happens for a reason. So I think that maybe that's why like he left and I got joined Cloud9 eventually, and we did well. So it's all like butterfly effect, you know. Things can affect other things in very strange ways.
So yeah, you're talking about the joining Cloud9 and all that success, and that almost seems like a very similar story in some respects to Optic, just insofar as you guys you're
It's so
having.
similar. It's like a alternate timeline. It's like the exact same. So weird.
So initially, let's talk about how because as you said, you get into Optic, you hit your stride, and I think for many players, you're in that situation and you're thinking, okay, everything I'm doing right now is really good. If I just need to keep doing this, but then obviously you join into a different team, and so maybe you have a situation where you have to learn the chemistry between the players, and some of the ways you make decisions might be different to adjust for the team. Was there an adjustment period for you, or did you just slot in like super easy?
For Cloud9, you mean, right? When I joined
Yeah,
Cloud9?
yeah.
Yeah. When I joined Cloud9, I actually lost my entry role and I went to more like a support role. Like I was on the edge. I was an edge player. I was on the edges of the map. Like I was Palos on Inferno, or sorry, Palace on Mirage. I was Door on Cash. These spots that like I didn't normally play, but I think I did pretty good because we had Stewie and Tarek, and we don't need a third entry fragger. Like I would entry if I needed to when we're executing, but in general, it was Stewie and Tarek doing it. So I just did my support role basically with Tyler. Me and Tyler were support, and I liked it a lot because I felt like Tarek and Stewie were doing a great job at their roles, and Tim was doing the all-around role, and I think that it worked out for the best. But honestly, my true calling is entering. And to go back to what you said about adapting, like I feel like I thought I was good at adapting, but I didn't realize how hard it was until I joined with or Mike or Golden joined the team. He has a very specific way of calling, and without going into too many details, it's basically like you have to know when to react after teammates without them saying it. Like you have to have really good initiative, and you have to be able to trade it at a moment's notice. And these things that aren't normal for me, I had to learn. I think I've gotten a lot better at it. But I mean, if you look at Martin or Stico's tweet longer, he even mentioned that like it's like going back to school, and he felt like he wasn't learning at a fast enough rate, and that's probably why he didn't make the cut. It's because he literally wasn't adapting fast enough to the way Golden wants to call. So yeah, to go back to what you said, it's like I've had to adapt twice now to two different like styles, and I think that both times, maybe at the start I wasn't used to it, but over time I got better.
Yeah, and I imagine when you were going into the major, was it already the case that the team was thinking about splitting ways?
I mean, we you're talking about, just to be sure, the Boston major, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you look at our event history, we made top four, top two, or one of like pretty much every event we played together, besides maybe like one or like Malmo. We didn't miss the top four the entire time, which is pretty insane. We were top five in the world, I think. And we never thought about changing the roster. Actually, we didn't talk about it once. Like, um, so the fact that we got second place after that at Summit after the major, and then that was a blow because we should have won that, which is fine. But second place, you can't be too upset with it, right? Then also after that, I think it was Katowice where we got quarterfinals. It was a good event for us. We almost beat FaZe in the quarters to make semis. And then after that is when WSG happened. So it was like a one-off fucking tournament, money grab, and we bombed out really hard playing versus Team One. And that's when it kind of all fell apart, which surprised me because it's just one tournament, literally one tournament that we played bad, and then it just all fell apart from that point. And it's unfortunate, but Stewie did feel like maybe we weren't improving since the majors, so that's why he left.
Yeah, it was really interesting because I think for so many people it was a kind of a shock move to sort of reach
Yeah,
that
shock to
height,
us
and
too.
then and yeah, and as we said for you, it's just like it's exactly the same story as with Optic. So I mean, it must have felt pretty like it must have been a pretty hard period for you to have to deal with that sort of again.
Yeah, I mean, both Stewie and like, here's the thing, like they asked they asked him to join, I think, pretty sure, and this is when Stewie was still on the team. I think he told us and then declined, right? And then Stewie got asked, I guess, but he didn't. I don't think he told us, or maybe he told like a few of us, but I wasn't aware of it until like I was living with him, just me and him. Tarek was home for just visiting family, and then I found out through like a third party that he left to join them. I was like, okay. So like, I think there's no really easy way to deal with leaving a team though. I mean, obviously the best option is to tell them instantly they got an offer and you're considering it, but in general, like, it's kinda like ripping off a Band-Aid, you just gotta do it. It's like anyone leaving a team, it's gonna be the same situation, you know? Just there's very small changes you can do to make it a little better, but no matter what you do, it's gonna affect the team the same way, pretty much. So, like I said, I don't fault Stewie or Tarek or Stan or any of them for leaving. I'm still friends with all 3 of them, like, good friends, but it's just like when you lead the team in the situation, you just gotta it's like, I keep getting fucked, so I gotta do my best, you know? Basically
Absolutely.
at a point I'm at.
It's just one of those things, isn't it? I think you've got a good mindset with that, and eventually after having this roster turmoil, I think a move that a lot of people were surprised about was Golden coming in, and I remember thinking that the work that Golden had did that he did with Fnatic, it seemed like he did help Fnatic regain their sort of previous identity of this kind of very dynamic mid rounds, sort of scrappy mid round team, and where there's like really good calls in that mid round as well to scrap out rounds, and he brought enough structure with that to make them have some consistency. And obviously, like they win an event and then he ends up leaving and they have that whole awkward situation. So, and then he comes to Cloud9, and so at that point, after with Fnatic just being very new at in-game leading, he's a little bit more seasoned when he first joined you guys. So how was the process, sort of dealing with Golden? Was it very surprising? Was it an easy fit?
I think it wasn't necessarily an easy fit at the start because we all had to adapt. Well, first we when we first got him, we had events to play, so he adapted to how we. But after that event, we started. It was easy at first, but then he changed the style to his style, and that's when we had to. Everyone had to adapt. Some people took longer than others to adapt, but I think that everyone so far on the team, I guess it's me and Tim right now, are all that's left from that when we first got him. We've adapted to how he wants to call. And like I said, it's very like he's a very blunt person. If you did something wrong, he's going to tell you. He's going to tell you to do it right the next time. It's not in like a aggressive or toxic way. So it's really good that he calls out every mistake, and everyone has to improve at that point. Um, he's very good at mid gaming, like you said. You have to react and your teammates at any moment. Like you have to be there. Like if you see someone rush through a smoke, you got to rush through it with them, like right away. You can't, whether he's hit it or not. You have to be there with him, stuff like that. And I think that, like I said, everyone's gotten used to it so far.
It's honestly, it's been quite fun to watch, and obviously, also, at that point you had sort of, as you mentioned previously, Stiko was standing in for a while, and obviously it wasn't. He's a great player, but it wasn't exactly a great fit stylistically, and so then that was a bit awkward. So again, it feels like you guys are just waiting and waiting to have that lineup, and that had to be very frustrating. And then you get Flusher in as well, and that was, to me, I was thinking, oh, this is. I feel like there's a lot of potential here. Were you excited when Flusher first jumped in?
Yeah, when I found out he was a potential person to get, I was so happy because like I thought to myself, finally we get a guy who's like super like veteran player who knows how to play perfect CS, and he's gonna fit great. And so far he has basically all my expectations have been met with him, and I'm really happy that we got him. but it comes down to like losing another player. Obviously, Scooter left, so like we had to kind of recuperate again to fit the void we got. And this isn't really a question, but like obviously Tim started opping right when Tyler said that he's gonna leave, and we still played like all our online matches with Tyler, but Tim was opping now because there's no point to if we're gonna change it like later, we gotta do it now. So we did it at the moment we knew Tim changed opping, and yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now.
Yeah, he's doing a pretty good job from, from what I've seen. Actually,
Yeah.
he's got a pretty sick ceiling with that. So it looks like he's fitting in well. Obviously, you guys use Kiyoshima as a stand-in. You touched upon it briefly, and Kiyoshima seems, he's also like one of those super veteran players, and he's very smart, very clutch, and very adaptable. So it seemed like he was always going to do pretty well in the lineup. I guess did you guys want to keep him?
Um, Without going into too many details about it, we are very satisfied with how he played. We're still like exploring our options overall for who to play with. Like whoever we get, whether it be Kyo or some other player, it's gonna be until after the next major. So it's like we have to make sure we're positive who we're gonna get. Kyo is definitely up there, probably the front runner, but we're still not 100% on who we're gonna get. He seems motivated, and he also, like I said, he fit in like so perfectly for the little time we had. We had like 5 or 6 scrims with them before. We had a boot camp for 2 days. Or something. We came early to Copenhagen, and obviously in the matches he played really well. So he exceeded all expectations. Like we didn't really expect that much out of him because we picked him to go with us last minute. Like we had some options to go with, and those fell through. And we're like, oh, let's just ask Keo. Then we asked him, and then like that was like 2 days, maybe 2 or 3 days before the event. So it's like pretty insane how well he did under the circumstances, you know.
Yeah, I mean it's actually really interesting how long he's been bouncing around as well, looking for a team, and the fact that he doesn't really want to seem to want to play the French scene, which I could see. There's a lot of drama there. So, and these international lineups seem to be working really well at the moment. Is Was that and I guess it was it weird for you in any sense, switching to an international lineup? I mean, the Swedes have such good English, so I guess presumably it's not been an issue in any sense.
Yeah, I mean the Swedish guys have perfect English, and even Q is really good English. Like, um, he lives in the UK and has a UK girlfriend, so he's gotten like a lot better from even when he first started. So his English is like flawless. So like it's basically like an English lineup, like everyone speaks good English. There's no language barrier. I don't feel the language barrier at all. So yeah, it's pretty good. I think that with Martin Stico, like to touch on him, is like when I play with him, sometimes obviously even you can probably tell in this podcast I can talk really fast sometimes, and he wouldn't understand me all the time when I say something, and also I mumble sometimes, and that was kind of a problem with me is that he didn't really understand me all the time. But with Keo, like I would call something really fast, like I'm all in window, like it sounds to you it sounds fine, but to like Martin it might sound hard. But Kiyoshima understood me every time when I said it. Like he never once like said what. Like every time I said something, he was on it. So that was something that really impressed me a bit.
Yeah, we mumble a lot in the UK, so he's definitely used to it. It's so. What do you think is the biggest sort of like performance hump or like the slump I should say that you've had? Do you think?
For individually or as a team or
Like individually, where you just like you sit down and play some CS and just like really feel like you're a bit stuck.
probably would be on Optic when we lost Stan. Like we played with I don't remember Jason R first maybe, and then after that it was Hazed, and that in that time frame, man, like I know like my skill, but like when you don't have like a who is him calling back then? I don't even remember. Besides the point is that like I couldn't like find my groove at all because like I just felt so uncomfortable overall with everything every tournament we played pretty much besides when we had stand was just bad for me like, and the only time I started playing better was when Terra called for an event. I think it was Cologne, and that's when he started calling because obviously he called in Cloud9 when we had him. It's a very loose style, very on the fly, and from what everything I've said, it would make sense that I was playing good because I always said that I need structure. But I think that it put me into more of a role where I can entry. And when I just go out there and kill people, I feel like I'm at my best. So that was more of what Tarek's style was.
I definitely want to touch more on that sort of like when I just go out there and kill people, I feel good. You know, like from the perspective of just entry fragging, that role that you say, you know, is that's your nature in the game, like where you can perform your best. Do you have any other players that you think are kind of inspiring from that role?
I never really had a player that I would like watch. I'm like, man, this guy's sick. But like players who I can say that I respect a lot would be Tarek. Obviously he's been ex teammate for a long time, like 2 years. But like the thing with him is like he's very selfless. Like he's kind of like I feel like me. Like he would go in no matter what. Like he would even if he knows he's gonna die, he'll do it for the better of the team. There's not a lot of there's not a lot of players that actually do that. I feel. Another player is like Dupree. Dupree's kind of like pretty pretty good entry figure to watch. I think Rain. Like these players are like players that I didn't necessarily look up to like when I was coming up, but they're players who I've played against and I respect like how they play. Like they're very fearless and they'll do it whenever they have to. And like I said, not every player will do that. So
What do you think makes a a super top tier entry fragger?
oh, I mean, like I said, fearlessness, but at the same time, just knowing like in a moment that you might it's like a 99% chance you're gonna die, but there's also a 90% chance that when you die, it's gonna get traded. Knowing that and just sacrificing your life for that is what makes a match figure good. There's a lot of people who will second guess themselves. Like I'll see young players all the time saying, "Oh, I'm not gonna go. I'm just gonna die." It's like, yeah, but I'm gonna trade it. You gotta realize that even if you die, it's for the better of the round. So like I think it takes some players time to realize that. But what makes a truly great entry figure is having that coupled with the really good entry skill itself, like having the ability to clear the angles perfectly and also kill them, like say going into like a mirage, like hard clearing their bulk, like knowing that you might get shot in the back from jungle, but just clearing it anyways, because if he's there, you're gonna kill him, and if you get shot in the back, your teammate's gonna kill him. Like just properly clearing things is also something that's very underrated. Some people like who don't entry who try to entry, they have slow sense, like they can't do it. Like that's one thing I didn't really mention either. Like there's players who really can't do it because they can't move their mouse fast enough to clear angles. Like an example is on my team, like automatic, like Tim. He's like he could be a good entry, but his sense is really low. That like and there's no way like if he goes out and someone shoots from the back, he can flick them. He'd have to like break his arm doing that because he has such a low sense. So it really depends on the player.
Do you have a mental checklist? And is that because I'm just sort of thinking, for anyone listening, and if they're thinking about this role, like what is a good way to start thinking about it? If they are wanting to get better at it, and because I always thought about it as sort of you have like this mental checklist of a series of tasks that you want to achieve just to like create clarity, because you're operating within chaos, right? As well, there's like all kinds of shit going on when you're running into a bomb site or whatever.
I don't have a checklist, but I think like the subconscious things I think about that make me like more confident is like obviously when I'm playing against a certain team, I try to remember where the player on certain side I'm entering plays very often. Like I'll know like certain players in Mirage will play default a lot, or certain players on Mirage will play under Balk a lot. Some people don't play under Balk at all. Like it really depends on the team you're playing against. That's one thing that I think is any entry figure should do their homework on is knowing where the common spots are when you're on a 1v1 situation entering a site. Also, like one thing that gives anyone confidence and what mainly makes me appreciate the role the most is that like if you get the kill, you pretty much secured the site. If you get 2 kills, you pretty much secured the round. It's like it's very like exhilarating to get that. Like an adrenaline rush when you kill 2 players without taking a point of damage, like, and you win the round from them because everyone starts saving. That's like an insane feeling, and I think once people feel it, they'll realize entering is a lot of fun, even if you die a lot.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I mean, I'm from Quake, so that's basically my default as well. So I definitely enjoy it a lot. And do you have any ways that you like? Do you ever practice that skill set specifically? Like, is there a way that you try to hone that, or do you just play Counter Strike?
I mean, there's no particular way I hone it. Like, I became an introvert based on the way I play. It's just like a really fast-paced style. I slowed down a lot, obviously, over time because I had to play new roles. So I think I have the best of both worlds now. But I think if anything to practice it, I'll play like an execute server, and an execute server there's obviously a side when you're a terrorist and you're running into a site and you're entering, and I'll just go like literally just rush in, like I'll jump out halls like full speed, or if I'm playing an FPL as well, like I'll try to like not bait my teammates, even if I know if I bait my teammates, I'll probably win the round, win like the post plant stuff like that. It doesn't matter because I'm not practicing to win. I'm not playing to win the FPL. I'm playing the FPL to get better or like stay like honed. So if I'm in an FPL, I'll just try to entry whatever I can because that's like the best practice right there.
Okay, what about handling pressure and so on and so forth? That's one of the biggest make or breaks for any professional player. You can do anything in your bedroom, but you're on that stage. It's the big match, the career defining moment. Do you deal with that easily, or is it because for some people it is actually easy, but or have you had struggles with it?
I mean, at start I was pretty nervous. Like I think anyone's nervous to first land or first in front of a crowd. Actually, I was never really nervous from a crowd because I was already playing a bunch of lands. But like my first, I was definitely nervous, and I think that for any new player, realize that you're probably gonna be a little nervous. But once you break through that wall, like once you have a really good round, you're gonna realize it's just like any other setting really. And so when you're in front of 10,000 people, whatever it is, then your computer, it's the same exact thing. As long as you get your adjustments right, like your chair height, make sure your mouse pad's in the right spot, everything's the same, your config, then it's literally the same thing, honestly. There's no difference. And I'll still get nervous sometimes, like not nervous, more so adrenaline. Like if I'm in a clutch and I win it, the adrenaline's pumping really hard. But I won't say it's nerves. It's more just like I'm really into it and I'm like mentally focused to the point where like um yeah, like the adrenaline's just pumping.
So how do you do your prep before a game? You got a massive game on stage. I spoke to Valde about this actually on one of the previous podcast episodes, and he was talking about how he doesn't like to sit in death match, and he likes to actually maybe watch the game that's going on before his game. He likes to sit there and visualize a lot of the rounds, like the plays that he might make and so on, and just spend time sort of in his own mind as opposed to sitting on a death match server or something. Is how do you do it?
Something I used to always do that I can't really do anymore, but it's not terrible, is I used to retake a lot. Not like the whole time, but like at least like 30 minutes of retake. I feel like that really sets the tone for like being like it makes it a lot because there's a lot of situations where you have to retake or you're in a post plan situation. I think that helps a lot. Also think it's important to not eat like a huge meal before you play because you're gonna be like almost like in a coma, like a food coma. So having like fruits, like even just like one banana or one apple, like it's just enough to get you that sugar energy you need, you know. And I typically try to avoid energy drinks because like I think that at home I don't normally drink energy drinks. So like if I have like a Red Bull or a Monster before a game, I'm gonna feel different than what I would normally at home. And I still do sometimes, and I don't know why. Maybe because I'm jet lagged and I want to feel like more energy. But I think it's bad to like have different to feel different in the land scenario. Also, like I said, I like to eat like small foods, but at the same time, if I have time, I will try to go to the gym before I play for a multitude of reasons. I feel like mentally better if I go to the gym. Like if I go to the gym at like 9 a.m. and I have a game at 3 p.m., I'm gonna feel good for that game, I think. But I can't go too hard to like drain myself. But if I, it's also like it's more of a selfish reason. But I like to go before. It doesn't affect the game at all. But I like to go before because typically I don't have a lot of energy or time to go after my games. So it's better to go before. Like it's the best of both worlds, really, just to get it over with.
That makes a lot of sense. I could definitely relate to that. Like it just makes the day better, actually, doesn't it? You just get that little
100%.
endorphin rush, and you feel more
In the day
energized.
you're tired too. Like you beat your opponents. You also went to the gym. You feel like super like satisfied at the end of the day. But if you win your versus your team and then like oh now I gotta go to the gym, like your mindset's like not the best because you know your day's not over. But when you do both and your day's over, you feel pretty good. It's like any like for you like casting, like you know that when you're done casting that one match, like you're done. You don't have to do anything. You can just relax. But if you gotta go to the gym still, you gotta get into a different state of mind to get ready for the gym.
That's a really good point. It's definitely not necessarily going to be happening after a cast. Um, so that's actually branches us nicely into the topic of gym life, because sometimes we have a chat about training for maybe like 30 seconds when we're like passing each
Yeah.
other.
Pass in
Um,
the elevator. Yeah.
yeah, it's what are your like? How did you get into it? What's it all about for you?
Well, I've been going to the gym since I was like 18, but like I was so like not into it like from 18 to like I'd say 20. I'd go for a couple months, stop. I'd go for a couple months, stop for 7 months, go for 2 months, stop for 6 months. Like it was never consistent, and it's always more off time than on time. And during that on time, I was never fully into it, like mentally. And I'm not sure why. Because my brother is actually he's probably one of the reasons I do it a lot. He's a really big time lifter. He's a power lifter. Like he squats like 600 pounds. He deadlifts like 750, and he benches almost 400. I think he's really up there in numbers. And he's only like body weight like 190, so it's super strong for his weight. And I think that's kind of like an inspiration in itself. But yeah, I know it's crazy, but what really started me, like, I've been lifting, like, really hard and consistently for only a year now, which is kinda crazy to me because I feel like I've been doing it for longer. I mean, I have, but not, like, consistently. But when I did it for the first month, it's kinda like Tarek was going, when he lived together. I'm like, "Alright, I'll come along." And I went for a month, and I went, like, going, like, for 4 days, 5 days a week, which is a lot for me. Normally, I went, like, 3 days a week back in the day. And I noticed after about a month, I noticed, like, actual, like, a lot of, like, strength gains and, um just like appearance gains. Like I saw actual like improvement. And then also like I was doing a lot of research online, like learning the best ways to do things, like the best techniques. Because if you don't do the right technique, you're not gonna work the muscle properly, like the mind muscle connection, and also nutrition, like how to split your body parts, like all these things that I had never looked up before. I started looking up like almost like 5 hours a day. I was doing it, maybe even more. Like I was after my practice, I was just watching YouTube videos and like articles all day. And I still know so little, but I like still do to this day. Maybe not as much, but once you learn that and you apply it to your everyday workouts, it really gives you like a good feeling to know that it worked for you and you see improvements in your lifts because of it, things like that. But yeah, something really clicked in my brain. I think that happens for everyone at a certain point. Maybe not everyone, but most people that go to the gym, there's a point in their life I think where like you might have been half-assing it before. Something in your brain clicks, and it's just like, why the fuck would I not do this before? And that's kind of where it hit me about a year ago.
Nice. Yeah, that's. I actually do think as well. It is. I think it's super beneficial, to, as you said before, like balancing out some of the gaming because we do spend a lot of time sitting down, and you end up helping to train a lot of those sort of stabilizing muscles, and one of the biggest causes of back pain actually in the 30s, although you're not quite there yet, but I am. it's
Oh yeah,
it's actually
I
weaker
have lower back
obliques.
pain actually. In
Oh,
some
you do?
in some of my workouts, I noticed it. I was always like wondering, why the fuck do I have this? And then I realized it's probably because I've been sitting in like poor posture for so many years that when I lift these weights, it's like coming into play. So that's one thing I try to work on is my lower back.
Kind of nuts when you go down that rabbit hole of just all the ways you can train and all the ways you kind of
Oh
need
yeah.
to if you feel like you become aware, you sort of remove that kind of that ignorance of just sort of not knowing anything about your body, and then you start to learn. He's like, oh shit, it's actually like for me, for example, like I've every time I injure myself, I have like 3 months of extensive research where I'd figure out exactly what I did and exactly the ways to avoid it. And for example, with my shoulder, it's just the case that I had this injury, and now I know that I've I've had all the diagnostics, so I know for my specific anatomy, all the specific ways I have to train all of the stabilizing muscles, which I had no idea even existed when I was
Yep.
lifting before. Like there's this for the four rotator cuff muscles and all the shit you have to do for that, and all the mobility stuff as well, and how that impacts everything. It's a rabbit hole, man. it's a,
It is. There's like so many different like branches that you could like literally be like I said, you could be on the YouTube or wherever like looking up things for hours and hours every like for years because there's so much info out there. Not all of it is like that good, granted, but a lot of it can be good.
yeah, that's the thing too, isn't it? That's like just being good at like thinking and understanding where the information is coming from,
Yeah,
and being
identifying the misinformation
skeptical.
is really hard.
Yes, that's such a big deal. It's if anything, like just even if one day you just decide that you hate lifting, like you will have gained so many research skills in that sense, and like get a
Mhm.
good bullshit detector going.
That's very true.
Right. Well, I don't think I have anything else really pressing to ask you. So, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day, out of your off time, to come and chat with me. It was a lot of fun.
Yep, it was good to talk about it. Some of these things I don't normally talk about, like obviously like the inner team things that happen back in Optic. It's kind of cool to touch on those for sure.
Yeah, I would. I'm sure I'll find an excuse to ask you back on in the future.
Yeah, I look forward to it. Maybe when I start lifting as much weight as my brother,
Holy
60
shit.
years down the line.
All right, thanks, man.
Yeah, no worries.